Welcome into the Elite Picks podcast, where we combine AI-powered player prop recommendations and our own insights to help you win big betting on the NFL. I'm Tyler here with John and B. Dot, and we've got a jam-packed show today. So let's dive right into our best bets for the 49ers and Seahawks Thursday night football matchup. John, talk to me, man. Who do you like for this one?
Well, I'll just say that now that Robert Saleh isn't bound by NFL betting regulations, maybe this should be his first bet of the week. I like Geno over 36.5 passing attempts here on Thursday Night Football. You may think that's a huge number, and it is, but he's actually hit this 3 out of 4 times this season so far. 99.99 EP score. We all know that you can't go wrong with those unless it's Justin Jefferson's under. That's the only time you stay away from a 99.99 EP score. Other than that, they've been golden. San Francisco is 6th most in passing attempts allowed against them. Obviously, they get up in games. Teams have to throw to beat them. They're very good against the run. I think this favors the game script narrative of this game because I expect San Francisco to be up in this game and up handily because they want to make sure that this is out of reach so they can't screw it up in the fourth quarter again this year. So again, San Francisco is 26th in pass yards per completion and 9th in rushing yards allowed. So I feel like Seattle would be dumb to try to run the ball too much against them, even though they do have a very good back in Kenneth Walker. But yeah, I expect this to go over. It's going to take till the fourth quarter, so it might be a little bit of a sweat, but this is something that can definitely hit in the garbage time area of this game. So what do you guys think?
100% agree. Geno, the Seahawks, they depend on a lot of on Geno's arm a lot. I've hit this prop the same. Last week he went crazy. So it's come on, man. Look at that EP score. 100% agree.
Yeah, I was gonna say he had 40 attempts last week. How many do you think he had against Detroit? Just take a guess. How many passing attempts?
56.
56.
20 off there. Just a bit outside.
So that makes me feel a little bit about the 36.5 number. But this is a good early bet. I think this line might go up a tick or two by the time either this show comes out or by the time we get into Thursday. So I got this one in early, but yeah, I like it. So I was gonna say, B-Dot, what you got cooked up? A little bit of Geno sauce too?
Come on, man. I'm gonna piggyback with the Geno over 16.5 rushing yards. Last week he had 38 rushing yards on 5 attempts. This year he's actually averaging 29.2 yards rushing yards a game, averaging 7.5 yards. And Geno is not the fastest, but he's 6'4", long legs, and that Seahawks offensive line isn't the best. So when Geno needs to use his legs, he doesn't like to, but he has this year pretty well. So I think this is definitely a lock. And with that EP score, 87.15, he's hit this in the last 3 out of his last 5 games. And this is definitely a lock, man. How you guys feel about it?
I like it. I mean, if Geno falls over, he's 3 yards forward right there. So based on that alone, right? So
hello.
No, I like it. I think he'll be from that San Francisco pass rush. He's going to be running out of the pocket a little bit. So expect him to get downfield a little bit against that San Francisco secondary too. But Tyler,
as long as run this year was 34 yards. So
he can get it. He can get it.
He can get it. He can 100% get it.
Yeah, I like this play a lot. Definitely expect Geno for the Niners to dial up a lot of pressure on Geno, and he hasn't been afraid to run before. So I definitely think this is a scenario where I think there's going to be it's going to be a relatively high scoring game. So I think it's just going to give Geno more opportunities, which the Seahawks have already dealt with a couple of high scoring games. So I love this play, and I think it's gonna probably hit it within one run, as long as nothing crazy happens in terms of losing yardage or things like that. But even last week, he went off for a long run. So like both of you guys on Team Geno this week.
Yeah. Couple things too. The over-under is at 47.5 for this game, so that bodes well for that high-scoring narrative. And also, they're not favored, so I don't think that we would normally expect Geno to be taking kneel downs at the end of this game, which is usually one thing that I'm always looking for with quarterback rushing yards, because especially if it's a little bit, because you've got Patrick Mahomes over 6.5. That's a really low number for Patrick Mahomes, but he's usually taking 3 knees at the end of the game, so you have to subtract 3 to 4 yards at the end of that total for sure. But Tyler, what you got for this Thursday night matchup?
Yeah, so I decided to go on the Niners side here. I'm going with Brock Purdy over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think this is one of the easier plays for the night, to be honest with you, despite maybe what Vegas or what maybe what some of the past statistics have shown this year. But in the last 2 games, Seattle's defense is giving up 5 pass touchdowns and 2+ in each game, which is exactly what we're looking for with this bet. If you look at the schedule to start the season for Seattle, they faced a few below average quarterbacks like Bo Nix, Jacoby Brissett, and Skylar Thompson. So we're already starting to see the regression over the past 2 weeks as they started to play teams with a bit more competency at quarterback. I believe they faced Jared Goff as well as Daniel Jones, who isn't somebody to write home about. But both of those guys were able to get over 2+ touchdowns. So I think this is a smash spot for Purdy. Even if you look at historical trends, Purdy has had 2+ touchdowns against the Seahawks in 3 matchups, one of them being in Seattle. So in a game where this is pretty much must win for the Niners after a surprising start, I think Purdy's going to be chucking the ball all over the yard and specifically in the end zone. So give me Purdy with 2 touchdowns tonight, 2 passing touchdowns.
I like it for sure. Christian McCaffrey not back for this game yet. So they're definitely going to be throwing the ball. I know Jordan Mason is competent and stuff like that, but San Francisco has too many red zone weapons. I think you could throw both those TDs to Kittle, possibly at this point. So having him back is a big plus for this. So I really like the angle for sure.
I like that pick too. And I'm not saying much. Brock Purdy's been the best player, offensive player on that San Francisco 49ers team, bearing injuries, but you still got Deebo Samuels, you still have Brandon Ayuk out there. Still have Kittle, and he's showing that, hey, y'all think I'm a game manager? Whatever, I can sling that thing around. So, pause.
He's been showing it. He's definitely been showing it.
He has. So, I like this. I definitely like this pick.
Yeah, good pick, Ty.
Awesome. Appreciate you fellows on that. We're going to keep this moving now to the actual game picks on what side who we think is going to win for this 49ers at Seahawks matchup. So, John, tell me, who do you like out of these 2 teams?
I these past few game picks, I've been listing out the reasons why my team should do this, and I think I just got to go with my gut on this one. There's no way San Francisco loses another goofy game, right? Like they're 2-3 now through 5 weeks, right? They have a losing record, and they probably feel like they should be 4-1 at this point between the Cardinals game, which they threw away in the fourth quarter, and the Rams game too, which congrats Tyler on that one. But I think that this team is a little bit in desperation mode, and even in Seattle, I wouldn't want to go against a desperate 49ers team because this team is dangerous even when they're not desperate. So I think the Super Bowl hangover ends here. I think they're going to have a good season throughout the rest of the season, and they probably win this game by more than 3.5, which is the line here. So I'm going to go San Fran. Vito, what do you think?
Man, I'm going with Geno and them Seahawks. Man, come on now. They about to bounce back from the Detroit Lions laps they had last week. Geno's leading the league in pass yards, so that that explosive offense is really going to continue to be explosive with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They're at home. They have that home field advantage. I know it's it's not what they used to call it, the 13th man. I know it's I know it's not
12th man.
12th man. My bad. I went D2. I didn't go to school. I didn't go to school for math. I went to go hoop. But I think that 12th man at Lumen Field would show up. And I mean, just the resilience the Seahawks showed in the second half. With those strong second half drives, I think they carry that momentum over to the San Fran game. And man, I'm going with Seahawks plus 3.5. I think they win by a touchdown. John. I feel as though Geno was going to have a bounce back game. He had his best game of the season last week, statistically wise, with like 395 passing yards, only 1 touchdown. So I think they figured that red zone debacle out. And I'm going with the Seahawks, fellas. So Tyler's on you, man. I'm hoping your team Seahawks, your team Dot. Come on, man. Dot Lombardi. I'm back. I don't miss much when I got the Dot Lombardi hat on. So
yeah. And Tyler, bear in mind that I don't think you and I have ever won a game pick when we've picked opposite of B-Dot together. So nervous to see how this goes. What do you got?
Well, you know the saying, there's a first time for everything, and this is going to be the first time I think that me and John walk away with a W here. I'm riding with the Niners minus 3.5 here. John's hinted at some of this, but it's been a rocky start for the Niners. Definitely not how they expected. And this game has massive implications for the rest of their season, especially coming off an extremely tough loss against the Cardinals in Week 5. But with all that said, I think they're going to get up for this game, and this is a bounce back spot and a way for them to get back on track to potentially make the playoffs and maybe another postseason run. But one main reason to me that I'm going to go with the Niners is because, to me, last week, the Seahawks offensive line sort of got exposed against a pretty bad Giants team. They gave up 7 sacks to Geno Smith, which, could be good B-Dot for your rushing over if he's going to be running for his life. So
and dropping back to pass 40 times too. So
correct. So from an attempt standpoint, if he's just calling hike and just throwing it into the ground because he's got nobody to get it to, those certainly count. Wait, did you take completions or did you take attempts?
Attempts.
Okay, exactly. So, hey, as long as it's not intentional grounding, it still counts as an attempt for you. So, but yeah, I'm really worried about the Seahawks offensive line based off how they played last week. And as I mentioned, some of the teams that they played earlier in the year that just weren't very good. So I think this is going to be a game that the 49ers really come out swinging, especially in a prime time game. So I have them winning by at least 10 points in this. And, I'm analytical tie. I love giving those betting trends. Seattle has struggled recently against the spread, going 1-5-1 in their last 7 games. So for all those reasons, bang, bang, Niner gang, let's do it. I'm taking a minus 3.5.
Man, we're getting set up to get danced on again.
If the Niners do win now, I got my fallback. I can always say I had the Niners red on. That's gonna be my excuse if they do
win. I was gonna say, B-Dot, you always come dressed for business here.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
I got the end for Niners.
All right, we're going to move on to our final segment of the day, which is looking at our Week 6 overview, which is going to be located on the homepage of the Elite Picks app. And let's see, we're going to start with the quarterback position. Either B-Dot or John, talk to me. Who on this quarterback list sticks out for you for Week 6?
Well, there's one thing that B-Dot always loves on the overview, and there's one thing that I always love. And this week, they're the same thing, because B-Dot always starts with Lamar Jackson, always a matchup nightmare for any defense. And I always look, who's playing the Commanders defense? Yeah. Because I want that guy. So Lamar Jackson facing the Commanders this week, I think that's a hell of a matchup. Like, just look for wide receivers and quarterbacks against Washington. It's the perfect formula. Their secondary is terrible. They give up tons of yards and touchdowns, and their offense is so high powered that they don't let teams establish the run against them, because teams are always passing to keep up with the Jaden Daniels led offense. So it's been pretty good. It's foolproof. If even the Cleveland offense can put up numbers, Amari Cooper hit his over last week. Deshaun Watson didn't hit his passing over, but we didn't bet that, so don't worry. If even that offense can put up numbers against this Commanders defense, I definitely love Baltimore to do the same there. So B-Dot, you can chime in why Lamar is such a good matchup against anybody, but for me, it's about the Washington Commanders defense there.
Man, I 100% agree. I never go against LJ. You feel me? And especially against that Commanders defense. It's a great pick, John. But this week I'm going with Kirk Cousins. My Atlanta Falcons, my Dirty Birds, man, against them Carolina Panthers, 26th ranked opponent defense. Kirk Cousins had a career game last week. 4 touchdowns, 509 yards, 72.4 completion rate, and that dub. And I called it, by the way. I didn't get to talk my junk last week, so I wasn't here. So I'm gonna say a little bit more on this pod. But like I said, I like Kirk Cousins against that Carolina Panthers defense. He's gonna do his thing. He's gonna go crazy. Him and Drake London and Mooney there. He's finding his swag, and I think this is going to be the 1-9 close game. The Falcons win. I got Kirk Cousins with 3+ touchdowns, 274 yards, and a 72 completion passing rating. So, what you got for us, Ty?
Yeah, so I actually I'm going to go with that bad man Joe Burrow. I know the Bengals from a record standpoint aren't where they want to be as a team, but over the last 3 weeks, Joe Burrow is really starting to put it together. I know B. Dot, you were a fan of the hair. I'm not sure if the blonde's starting to wear off a little bit, but he's definitely starting to chuck the rock. In his last 3 games, he's had 10 touchdowns, so passing touchdowns. So I definitely expect him to continue to show this dominance, especially against the Giants, who I think might be riding a little too high off of a victory last week. And obviously getting back T. Higgins, as well as getting back a Jamar Chase who was holding in, but either way, in my opinion, wasn't necessarily at 100%, ready to play on game day. So now that he's obviously stretched his legs a little bit and is back to midseason form, Joe Burrow is just picking his poison in terms of who or when he's throwing the rock. So give me him against the Giants this week, whether you're looking at player props, definitely maybe over that touchdown prop as well as maybe yardage.
I don't know if that blonde highlight fades as much as you get, like the regular colored roots beneath it. So he's rocking like the frosted tips, like he should be the lead singer of Bowling for Soup or something like that this week. So yeah, I don't know. Is the magic fading? I don't know if it was there yet this year. So I feel like he's just catching his stride. So maybe he needs to get this out of his system.
I think it's just a hair dye that's fading.
I think it is. I think the hair dye was messing with his mental. And he's 5 touchdowns last week, and he was using his legs. Okay, he had added 1 rushing yard on 2 carries now. So he finding his swag.
Yeah. Everybody putting up tons of passing yards against that Baltimore defense is making me feel terrible about the Bills only putting up 10. So I'm worried, but we'll see how that turns out. But you guys want to move to running backs?
Let's get it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What do you like, B-Dot?
I like Saquon, man. I like Saquon versus the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns defense last week, last time he played week 4, he had 10 attempts, 84 yards, but that's 8 yards per carry with a long run of 59 yards. Didn't quite reach that end zone, so I feel like he will have a bounce back game. I think the Eagles overall will have a bounce back game against Cleveland. I think Cleveland is a great team to bounce back against, and I'm going with Saquon, man. I like Saquon Barkley in this matchup.
Yeah, for sure. They definitely won't have to be playing catch up with that Cleveland offense. I feel like, they're not going to be barn burners on offense where you're going to have to get away from your run game for sure.
Well.
I mean, it is the Philly D. The Philly D might let up some passing yards. I
did get an ESPN notification that Deshaun Watson, his latest case, his latest accusal case, it's been settled.
Nice.
Via the lawyer.
So how many dozen are we down to now that are still open?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I have to go to Elite. I have to check the EP score for the EP score on that. Yeah. So Deshaun Watson may have a bounce back game, but how you feeling about your pick, Tyler? Who you got for this one, man?
Yeah, before I get into my pick, definitely want to say too with Barkley from just a media standpoint. The Sirianni's been getting absolutely grilled for really just not getting Barkley enough touches in these last couple of games, even though he's producing at a very high level. So I think he can't continue to go to the podium and just say it's circumstantial or whatever, especially with a lot of their major players out on offense. So I love this play. And I think because of just the constant questions of why is Barkley not getting the ball more, I think you're going to see him get a heavy dosage in this game against Cleveland. And just for the record, I did pick up Watson last week because of all of the Commanders talk on defense, and it did not work out for me. Whether the cases were solved or they're not, certainly didn't look like it last week. So I'm totally off that Cleveland train for sure. But it was definitely interesting to see a surprise there from the Commanders defense.
Yeah.
But to get back on track here for you guys. Yeah, I like Brian Robinson Jr. in the sleeper section of this list. He's probably had the highest floor out of any running back in the league. I think in PPR formats, from a fantasy standpoint, he's had at least 10 points a week. And this is all meanwhile Jaden Daniels, is getting a ton of attention and just a ton of respect, obviously, for how he's played. So I think the Ravens aren't really going to be focusing that much on Robinson Jr. or really going to focus on Daniels and trying to slow him down. And I would say even to add on top of that, the fact that Daniels has that threat to rush just gives Robinson more opportunities, whether it's in the RPO or the situations where they're going to have to account for Daniels as well, which makes more opportunities for Robinson to break tackles and to just have better lanes to run. So I like Brian Robinson Jr. On this list.
Yeah. And just quickly too, I'll say that this best matchup category is pretty stacked. I'd take any three of these guys if you have them, start them in fantasy, put some bets on them. I mean, we're looking at some bad ranked rush defenses here. Breece Hall going against Buffalo. We know that Buffalo's having trouble stopping the run right now. Bijan against Carolina. Look for them to be up and then pound the rock. The only thing I'd be worried about there is how much their second back is getting the carries there. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Tyler Allergy.
Yes, Algier.
Algier.
Yeah, that's funny. And then Josh Jacobs versus Arizona, always a good matchup there. Josh Jacobs has been having a decent year so far, and hit is over this past week as well. So a little bit of faith there in that Green Bay offensive line. But yeah, I like everybody on that best matchup. That's my favorite category. If you guys haven't figured it out yet, but
great call.
Panning over to wide receivers. B-Dot, you want to lead us off? Who looks good on here?
Wide receiver wise, I like CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb to have a bounce back game. Praying, he does. Man, him and Dak Prescott, they have to figure it out. And I think, they sit down this week. There's a lot of public scrutiny over the remarks that, were allegedly made to Dak Prescott from the mouth reading experts on the internet, what CeeDee Lamb said to him. So I think him and CeeDee Lamb get back on track. I think Dak actually tries to force a lot of targets, a lot of passes towards CeeDee Lamb, to keep him happy. And I think CeeDee Lamb has a hell of a week this upcoming week. Against that Detroit Lions, they're pretty good defense. But like I said, Geno Smith, he put up a lot of numbers against those guys last week. And I got CeeDee Lamb for 97 yards, 97 yards, 1 touchdown. I think you have a hell of a game.
That could easily be a shootout there. And Dallas is playing at home, so you don't have to worry about the away woes with them that week. And then that Detroit defense is good, but if you had to pick the weakest part of it, it's definitely the secondary. So good matchup there for CD for sure. But Tyler, who do you like on this list?
So yeah, I like Drake London against the Panthers, definitely for that best matchup. And this is a guy I have on one of my fantasy teams, and he's been relatively consistent this year, but really had his, I would say, first breakout game of the season and a monster performance against the Bucs last week. So I certainly can expect maybe not a game that good, but just the amount of targets and the amount of attention he's getting in the offense, I think is going to continue. Not to mention from a matchup standpoint, Panthers pass defense ranks near the bottom half of the league. You combine that with how much of an absolute heater Captain Kirk is on as of these last few games. I just think it's a perfect formula for Drake London to really have another big day. Because as I said, he's his favorite target. And I don't really see that changing anytime soon. And he's been doing great for me from a fantasy standpoint. So let's keep it rolling, Drake.
No Chris Olive? No Chris Olive, Tyler? No. What?
No Lave last night. Nah, he got. There was. I think he had his brother tweeted out last night or X'd out 1 target ? So believe me, I was talking to his brother. I was letting him. You got to get in his ear somehow. And then Derek Carr getting hurt was obviously insult to injury there. But yes.
Chris Olave with a couple of drops last night too. He had one drop on that last drive too. I stayed up for that whole game, which was a mistake because the end was boring. But he did have about a 25-yarder that went through his hands, and that ended the game. They turned it over on down. So Olave, you got to do better for us, buddy. You got to do a little bit better.
There was also a 30-yard catch that got called back in the 4th for unnecessary roughness. What helped with the over in that regard? But to your point, just you only get so many opportunities on those receiving props, and if they don't, come through in those opportunities, it may not end up well. But I
had him for 40 plus in a parlay, so it was a lot closer for that too. So that was my missing leg for my parlay, but
we'll
bet singles, kids.
We're probably going to fade him this week, which means he'll probably go for 175 and 2 touchdowns next week. So users take advantage of it. Make sure you keep an eye out on his EP score once those props come out.
Yeah.
Who you like on here, John?
Last guy I want to point out, Nico Collins. I know he had a hamstring injury from celebrating on a long touchdown in the Buffalo Bills game. Dude literally scored a 75-yard touchdown and pulled his hammy, slowing up going to the end zone. So while that did help the Bills a little bit in that game, hammies are weird injuries. If he is back, I love this matchup. He's playing wide receiver better than anybody in the NFL right now. And that's saying something because there's a lot of really talented wide receivers out there right now. But again, with that New England matchup, if he's out this week, I would take a peek in the sleeper picks with Tank Dell. He might pick up some of the slack there too, and Stephon Diggs obviously in that wide receiver core as well. So I like that passing game going up against New England. Even though New England likes to play ugly games, I think you can still get your numbers against them. So I'd be looking out for those Texans wide receivers there. But we ready for okay, Tyler, you want to lead us off in your favorite category, tight ends? Yeah, I know you love the tight ends lately, especially for I can see the hurt in your eyes.
I know. I was just telling these guys before we started filming that I have Mark Andrews and I didn't start him this week because of how bad he's been. Then he decided to put up a halfway decent. So it's just been a very frustrating position as a whole across all formats. But I do have somebody I do want to talk about. And it's obviously, it's going to be the top ceiling, one of the top ceiling category. It's going to be the top ceiling category, excuse me. And from the top ceiling category, I'm going to go with Jake Ferguson, a.k.a. Turd Ferguson, for those of you that are the SNL fans there. But Jake Ferguson was injured to start. I think maybe after the first game, was out for a couple weeks, but has been starting to come and be a big part of the offense, especially with Brandon Cooks being hurt. So I think that they're going to continue to feed Jake Ferguson in this offense that needs to throw the ball. And obviously you mentioned CeeDee Lamb. I just think there's going to be so much attention put on him that Ferguson's going to get more opportunities to do well. And as I mentioned, since this tight end position has been underwhelming as a whole, I'm guessing these player prop lines aren't too big from a yardage standpoint or even a reception standpoint. So I like Jake Ferguson this week, and a guy I would definitely consider starting in DFS formats if you're looking to fill that position.
Yeah, I got him on my fantasy squad. So not that I have another tight end. I have Isaiah Likely too, but so that's not really a decision. Jake Ferguson has the much higher floor out of those two. But Vida, who stands out to you on here?
I'm gonna go with Kyle Pitts. Stay with them Dirty Birds, man. Kyle Pitts versus that Carolina Panthers defense. With a lot of attention that's going to be on Mooney and Drake London. I think, Pitts, sneaks in there and gets about 59, 60 yards. Very, very, I think Atlanta's going to have a lot of red zone opportunities, and Kyle Pitts will, take advantage of that. So be on the lookout for Kyle Pitts against that best matchup, the category right there. And we see the opponent rank at 27th, and Carolina Panthers aren't, the Carolina Panthers of old that we know. So
yeah,
be on the lookout for Kyle Pitts. It's a very scarce category to pick, and apparently closing my eyes and choosing a great tight end in Kyle Pitts. So y'all be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't see. I was gonna say the Washington secondary is probably on here somewhere. The Ravens tight ends aren't on here. But Washington is actually, they're not good against wide receivers. They're decent against tight ends, so that's why they're not showing up. But when I don't have Washington, I like to look at the Jacksonville secondary, who has been almost as bad this year. So Cole Kmet, definitely a good sleeper pick down there. Very, very inconsistent tight end. But if you need to throw a Hail Mary, if you're not going to be favored to win your fantasy matchup, whether you choose a high or a low floor tight end, and you just want to throw a Hail Mary, Cole Kmet's had one of those games this year, at least so far. So he's a guy who can, on a whim against Jacksonville, maybe he puts up 12, 13 fantasy points or something like that. So we'll see how that goes. That's just a guy who stuck out to me. Definitely not a dependable tight end, but who is out of this crop. So, it's a week-to-week league as far as starting tight ends. So, yeah. Anything else you guys got on here?
I did just want to mention with Tucker Kraft on that sleeper section. He did have 2 touchdowns last week against the Rams. So you could see a little more volume from him potentially. I would keep in mind, though, that Romeo Dobbs was out of that game for just deciding, I'm not going to show up to work for like the next 2 or 3 days, and you guys are just going to have to deal with it. So the Packers suspended him for that. But that combined with Dontavian Wicks, if that's his first name,
Yep.
he had a decent amount of drops as well. So, but definitely a guy who, from a sleeper under the radar, maybe consider throwing Kraft in a lineup, or maybe starting him if you're really decimated at the tight end position, because he got a couple of touchdowns last week, and maybe they're going to decide to build on that, even with the amount of wide receivers in their room.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
All right, awesome. It's always a pleasure doing this with you guys. We're going to wrap it up for today. I want to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does help out the channel. It helps us grow. So we really do appreciate it. Also, feel free to leave us a comment and let us know what you'd like to see more of. Maybe what player props you like, what fantasy players you may like. And please be sure to take advantage of the free trial for the Elite Picks app. The link in the description is below. In the description below. Good luck, everybody, and we will see you on Friday for this week's Sunday and Monday games.